8 homes on Minnesota's North Shore burned to the ground last weekend. 34 structures in total are gone. 150 firefighters from 4 states and Canada converged on a city of 3,600 people. The governor declared a peacetime emergency and mobilized the National Guard. Firefighting planes scooped water directly out of Lake Superior to drop on trees burning 200 feet from the shore. Flame lengths reached 60 feet. Highway 61, the only road connecting every lakeside community to the mainland, closed for 5 days. The fire was started by a downed power line on May 15, 2026, and it is the second major North Shore wildfire in 12 months. But here is the detail that tells the real story. The drought did not load this forest. A caterpillar did. Since 2020, a native insect called the eastern spruce budworm has killed trees across 1.3 million acres of northern Minnesota, an area larger than Delaware. The dead balsam fir it leaves behind becomes ladder fuel, carrying ground sparks straight into the canopy. The U.S. Forest Service put this in writing in September 2025, 8 months before the Stewart Trail Fire. It warned that budworm-killed trees had created dangerous fuel loads across exactly the region that just burned. Nobody moved the trees. The fire found them exactly where the caterpillar left them. Highway 61 cuts through the heart of Minnesota's North Shore, threading together a chain of lakeside towns and remote homes with the rest of the state. For more than 4,500 vehicles a day, it is the only paved, all-season route, serving not just tourists and delivery trucks, but ambulances, firefighters, and every resident who depends on a steady flow of food, medicine, and supplies. When the Stewart Trail Fire forced a full closure from May 15th to May 19th, the region's lifeline was severed. The official detour, a gravel county road, added nearly 25 miles and at least 45 minutes to every trip between 2 harbors in Silver Bay. For families evacuating under smoke, and for local businesses already reeling from a sudden drop in visitors, that detour was more than an inconvenience. Freight carriers reported tens of thousands of dollars in spoiled goods as trucks missed refrigerated delivery windows. Lake County Hospital documented ambulance delays averaging over 40 minutes, with 3 patients rerouted to a distant hospital when time mattered most. Along the corridor, restaurants and shops saw sales fall by nearly 40% in 5 days. With no alternate highway, the fire's advance turned every lakeside community into a potential dead end. The single-road reality of Highway 61 magnifies the consequences of every disaster, making any closure a regional emergency. In a landscape where evacuation, commerce, and even basic healthcare hinge on a single corridor, the stakes of wildfire go far beyond the flames themselves. A single spark from a downed power line on May 15th ignited what would become a fast-moving inferno north of 2 harbors. Within hours, the fire leapt from ground brush into the crowns of dead balsam fir, sending flames as high as 60 feet above the treetops. Incident commanders faced a fire that moved with alarming speed, driven by dry winds and a forest primed for disaster. The initial attack force, just over 70 firefighters from local and state agencies, quickly called for reinforcements. By the second day, more than 150 personnel from Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and even Canada were on the line. Helicopters and water-scooping planes drew from Lake Superior, dropping thousands of gallons in repeated runs. The Minnesota National Guard arrived under emergency orders, bringing engineering crews and ground support vehicles to help build containment lines and support evacuations. Despite the scale of the response, the fire outpaced efforts on the ground. Spot fires jumped Highway 61, forcing a complete closure and cutting off the only paved route through the region. Crews worked in shifts around the clock, but the combination of dense ladder fuels and relentless wind kept the fire active for 4 days. By the time containment was declared at noon on May 19th, the toll was clear. 34 structures destroyed, including 8 primary homes and a burn scar covering 356 acres. The response was swift and massive, but the fire's behavior raised troubling questions. Why did the flames climb so fast? And why did so much forest fuel remain untouched after years of warnings? The answers would point far beyond the events of a single week. Across Minnesota's Arrowhead, the eastern spruce budworm has rewritten the rules of fire risk. Since 2020, more than 1.3 million acres of balsam fir and spruce have been stripped bare or killed outright, with 712,000 acres affected in 2024 alone. The heart of this outbreak lies in Lake Cook and St. Louis counties, where dead and dying fir now dominate the forest. DNR forest health specialist Eric Otto explains, "We are seeing mortality rates over 60% in mature stands. These trees are not just dead, they are still standing, and that is the problem. When balsam fir succumbs to the budworm, it holds onto its lower branches and dries out, creating what fire managers call ladder fuels. These are not just fallen logs or scattered brush. They are vertical pathways that let a ground fire shoot straight into the treetops." Field measurements in northern Minnesota show that budworm-killed stands can carry an average of 12 tons of dead wood per acre, much of it suspended off the ground. In this kind of fuel, a spark does not just crawl along the forest floor. Instead, flames can climb 30 or 40 feet in minutes, turning a surface fire into a crown fire that races through the canopy. The Stewart Trail Fire's explosive growth was no mystery to those tracking the outbreak. With so much dead fir left standing, the forest became a fuse. Once ignited, the fire found ready-made ladders everywhere, fuel that officials had warned about for years. As Eric Otto puts it, "We knew the risk was there. The question is, what do we do about it now?" For nearly a century, fire suppression shaped the forests of Minnesota's North Shore. Starting in the early 1900s, state and federal agencies worked to stamp out every wildfire, believing that a landscape without flames was a safer, more productive one. Over time, this approach allowed dense stands of balsam fir to mature undisturbed, creating a forest structure that never would have existed under natural conditions. When the eastern spruce budworm outbreak swept through, killing more than 1.3 million acres since 2020, those dense fir stands became a tinderbox. The dead trees didn't fall right away. Instead, they stood for years, their lower branches forming a continuous ladder from the forest floor to the canopy. Scientific surveys show the highest hazard comes 2 to 4 years after defoliation, when the dead firs are still upright and most flammable. This is the window when a single spark can turn a surface fire into a crown fire, an event that no amount of water bombing can stop once it's running through the treetops. Tower Area Forest Supervisor Brian Felt warned, once the fire reaches the canopy, aviation can't contain it. The Stewart Trail Fire proved the point. Even with helicopters and planes flying non-stop, the flames leapt from ground to crown in minutes, fueled by decades of accumulated ladder fuels. The legacy of suppression, meant to keep communities safe, now amplifies the danger. Policies that once seemed prudent have created a forest primed for disaster, raising hard questions about why so little has changed since the last major fire, and why official warnings about fuel loads have yet to produce real action. In September 2025, the U.S. Forest Service issued a memorandum warning that budworm-killed stands along the Lake County corridor posed an immediate crown fire hazard. The language was blunt, describing a fuel complex that could sustain flame lengths over 50 feet, with aerial suppression unlikely to succeed under forecasted wind. Yet when investigative reporters requested follow-up records, they found a gap. No formal response plan, no evidence of budget shifts or scheduled fuel reduction, and only a redacted reply from county officials. When pressed for inspection and maintenance logs on the power line that failed in May 2026, the utility company refused to release them, citing confidentiality. The paper trail stops short of accountability. The warnings were clear, but the record of action is missing. As the same corridor burned for the second time in a year, the absence of transparency and follow-through raised sharper questions. What did agencies and utilities actually do after the memo? And why did a region flagged as high risk enter another fire season with the same hazards in place? The Stewart Trail Fire was not the first time Minnesota's North Shore was tested by a catastrophic blaze in budworm-killed forest. Just a year earlier, the Camp House Fire near Brimson swept through 12,000 acres of the same dead balsam fir, destroying 150 structures, more than 4 times the losses seen at Stewart Trail. Regional fire officials drew direct lines between the two events. Both ignited in landscapes flagged for extreme hazard, both exploded into crown fires, and both forced evacuations along the Highway 61 corridor. The 2025 fire report described the Camp House burn as driven by continuous ladder fuels and untreated budworm stands. with flame fronts that outpaced ground crews and overwhelmed local resources. A regional map of recent fire perimeters now overlays Stewart Trail and Camp House almost seamlessly, tracing a corridor where warnings were issued but fuel loads remained. The pattern is undeniable: 2 major fires, back-to-back, in the same untreated matrix. This is not an isolated disaster, it is a repeating system failure, raising the stakes for every community still surrounded by dead fire, and for every official who must answer why the same hazards persist year after year. This was not a random disaster. It was the foreseeable outcome of 1.3 million acres of dead balsam fir, official warnings ignored, and a single road putting whole communities at risk. Until fuel loads drop and oversight is real, Minnesota's next fire season is already on the calendar.